Detroit. Son, lion don't leave the Serengeti. Besides, it's gonna be our year. I can kill it.
You realize you're the worst father ever.
I'm not gonna let you ruin your lifetime. Y'all know who my dad is, right? Y'all know what he's up? Yeah, I know your broke ass dad. What you said your name was? Brett. Hey, white boy Rick, you got some balls coming here like you did. You good, Rick. You wanna move weight? You come to me. My dad finds this, he'll kick my ass. Just make sure he doesn't find it then.
All right, we're on. Salute to you all. Thank you for joining us. JC and Mkali, the West Coast Connection. Appreciate all the love, all the support that you guys have been giving us. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. In fact, right now, while you're listening to me talk, make sure you hit the like button so that this kicks in some algorithm juice for us. And we have a great guest coming off of our Tony Serra conversation. Another gentleman who knows a little bit about the federal courts and a little bit about the federal system, and who happens to be from the same area that Mkali and I are from, the Central Valley of California. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our guest, Mr. Seth Ferranti.
What's up? What's up, man? Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure's ours. So just to get things started, guys, Seth and Mkali were talking a little bit before we turned on the record button. Get into a little bit of what you guys were talking about there with the connection with Mkali.
Well, me and him actually have some parallels. So I was in Lompoc prison camp, and he just brought up a name that is giving me flashbacks right now of what was his name? Michael Santos?
Michael Santos, yeah, Michael Santos.
So I was in with, if you remember, JC, I was asking Tony Serra, we were in with this guy who was writing books. I couldn't remember his name. Well, it was Michael Santos. And just so happens that Seth knew Michael Santos, and it was pretty much, I would say, I guess he said it was like his mentor. How did you meet Michael, and how did you guys get close?
When I came in '93, and I did my first 6 years like in medium highs on the East Coast. I was in SCI Manchester and then SCI Beckley, and basically like they were like, I mean, it wasn't the pen, so dudes weren't stabbing dudes and killing them and stuff, but they used to call them gladiator schools, because you had to fight, or not, you'd get chased off the compound. But after 6 years, my level dropped, and I went to a low, and I went to Fort Dix. And FCI Fort Dix was like this big, huge prison, a low security prison on this big military base. And it was weird because after doing like 6 years, being locked in a cell every night in these brand new prisons that were, almost like college campuses, going to this like military complex with like barracks and like, real streets and just, the razor wire and the fence around. It was a trip. And they didn't have any moves or anything. So it was almost like freedom, after doing 6 years, locked down in a cell every night. And one of the first people I met was this guy named Michael Santos. He's a Cuban American dude. And he had started out at USP Atlanta, and he had worked his way down like over, by the time I met him, he'd been in maybe about 10 years, and he'd worked his way down from the penitentiary, to the low. And I kind of identify with him because, he got busted at a real young age when he was like 20, 21, just like me. And he got a crazy sentence. It was old law feds, but he got like 45 years,
Wow.
For basically his first time offense. And he was a big cocaine dealer. That's what, he was, he had Cuban family in Miami, and he grew up in Seattle, and he used to, ship like 100 keys from Miami to, Seattle all the time. So, we identified, on that tip, but also, this dude he was like really about his education. He had been working, he had like a bachelor's degree, he had a master's degree. He was looking into doctorate programs. And I had been, like through the Pell Grants, like 94 to 96, I had taken classes. And then I'd actually, at this time, I was working on my AA degree, my associate's degree through Penn State, through correspondence courses. So not only did we bond, over being young drug dealers and getting a lot of time, but we also bonded over the education. And I would say at that time, I was still young. I was like 28, 29. So I was still kind of, like in prison, anybody been in prison, especially, a young kid, you're trying to prove you're a man, you're trying to prove you belong, you want people to respect you, so sometimes you do stupid stuff to get that respect. And I was still kind of living, even though I was at a low, my level drop, but I was still kind of, acting like that, or, you know, putting that front on, putting that mask on, acting like I'm this tough guy, I'm this, I'll do that. And Mike kind of met me, and he kind of, he liked me, and he saw what I was doing, and he's like, dude, he's like, why are you putting on this front, man? Why are you putting on this, act or whatever? And I'm like, well, I'm like, dude, I'm in prison, man. I got a lot of time. I'm not gonna, this is how you got to act. This is how you got to carry it. And he really almost, he taught me like a different way. He's like, no, you don't got to act like this, because he goes, if you keep acting like this, you're going to get in trouble, and your level's going to go back up, and you're going to get more time, or you're going to get yourself in a fucked up situation. And he kind of showed me like a different way, to still get the respect, but get it more, like on a mental level, like when people, and I started doing stuff, like I saw what he would do. He was always in the law library. He was always in education because he was working on his college classes. But also what he was doing, he would have like the mafia dudes, like a lot of the gang leaders, or like the shot cars, or even dudes that had been in the pen, had been down like 15, 20 years, and they were at their end of the bid, and at the end of their bid in Lowe's, ready to go home. And they would always come and talk to him. And it was because he wasn't doing like legal work for them for court, but he was doing like, like institutional grievances, like administrative remedies. And he kind of showed me, he's like, man, you can start doing this. And also it was like a hustle, he was making money off it too. So he kind of showed me like a different way, to do my time, but still get like that respect, and that recognition that I wanted on the inside. Because, this time I'd been down 6 years. So I still had like, 15 years to go. So, and anybody that's been inside, your jacket or your reputation is, precedes you in any system, and it's very important. So I was like real worried about that. But yeah, man, Mike, I mean, he taught me that, but he also, I was already doing some writing, but I hadn't written any books or anything. I was mostly doing like institutional writing, for like, like the sport intramural leagues, I was doing like sports newsletters and stuff like that. That was like my job in recreation. And I wrote a couple different articles for like FamGram and November Coalition, like different, prison criminal justice reform newsletters. But, I got some stuff published. So, like when you're in there, like, oh yeah, I'm a writer, man. I got some stuff published. And this was like, I didn't even know the extent of Mike's writing or his publication at that time, and he kept coming at me. He'd be like, oh, what did you write? And I would show him like these couple photocopies of these newsletters, and sometimes it was like the same thing. I got it published here, and it was like the same thing I got to publish. I just got it published in a couple different places. And he was like, well, what else have you written? And I was like, I'm just for my college classes, but, just this couple things. That's why I'm a published author, and I was like all proud, and bragging. And he was like basically like clowning me. He was like, well, if you're a writer, you got to write. He's like, what do you write? You go, well, what else you got? And, and I was kind of like, and then he like started showing me more of his stuff. Like at that time, he had like from prison, he had like a book deal with like St. Martin's Press. He wrote this book, I think it's called Prison Life or something like that. But it's like a book that, after he put it out, it's like in all the colleges, for like all the criminal justice courses. And he was working on that. So he like showed me the book deal, and he was like, this is what I'm doing. So really seeing what he did and kind of his influence, like I said, he mentored me, but it motivated me. It showed me, like what you could do inside prison. I was like, man, this dude is basically, the same as me, and he's doing all this stuff, and he has all these big plans. And, it kind of took me from like a small mindset to, a much bigger mindset. Cause his biggest thing, he was like, dude, like, why are you trying to impress the people in here? He's like, what are they going to do for you? They're not going to do shit for you. He was like, you need to start worrying about the outside world. You need to start worrying about your future. You need to have, long-term goals. You need to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And he really like, I used to argue with him because reason I first started hanging out with him is because he was a beast, like for the workout. You know, he didn't do weights, but he would run and do like push-ups and sit-ups, and he was a beast. He was like really lean, you know, and I was like, man, I wanted to get, you know, I'd been doing some weights, so I was bigger, but you know, I wanted to get, you know, cut up and leaner. So I started working out with him, you know, and started training with him. And every day he would kind of throw stuff at me, you know, and like, you know, chastise me, criticize me, you know, but in a supportive way, you know, like trying to bring me up. And I would argue with him. I would argue with him, you know, because I kind of had like that prison mentality, and I'd be like, nah, we're in prison. It's like this. And it took 2 years, man. But like after 2 years of him just like, you know, bombarding me, you know, basically like every day, you
He
know,
broke
it
the
kind of,
stubbornness.
yeah, it changed me, man. It changed me, and it kind
You
of
got
led me to
through
who I
finally.
am now. Yeah, it led me to who I am now, and all I've accomplished. And you know, I put that down to him. You know, I mean, it took a lot of hard work on my thing, but I mean, that dude really changed me. That's why I always tell people he's my mentor. You know, he to me the dude's like a genius. Like I'm so glad I met him because he kind of maybe I still would have became a writer. I still would have done stuff, but he just changed my whole outlook and how I approach stuff.
When I met that guy, I felt the same way when I met him, but my time was a lot shorter than yours. So I, you know, again, he was writing a book. He worked in he worked in this other section in this other like it was a I can't remember what it was. It was like a we're the mechanic shop or something. He worked in this back room. He had his own little office, and he would sit back to his computer with his typewriter, and he's just working on his books. And every now and then I talk to him, but just like you said, he'd have like a little grin on his face, and he would come at you with something that was real savvy, almost sarcastic, but giving you some heads up. And so you know, I know exactly where you're coming from when you talk. But I mean, obviously, I didn't know him on your level, and I'm just, you know, it's really good when you find someone like that can actually push you through everything that you were dealing with. Because you know, your mentality at the time was, you know, obviously you want to protect yourself. You don't want to get your skull cracked. So you're thinking, I have to put on a facade so I can be this person. And he showed you that, you know, no, you know, it's almost like going back to Shawshank when he was in the library and he was doing paperwork for people. You know, you picked up the pen and you started
You know,
using brains.
one of the big takeaways from that, and really all of our lives, the audience has seen Mkali and I on interviews, as well as some of the shows we've done before, and I've certainly have seen Seth as well, is that you never know where help and mentorship can come from. It'll sometimes come from the least likely places. On here, I obviously mentioned, you know, Marcelo's name, you know, older guy, cartel guy, who took a lot of us in my neighborhood, you know, under his wing. And yes, we were selling drugs for him. However, he was the one dude telling us, don't be doing the stupid car theft type crimes. Don't be taking the police on chases. Don't. Seth, what did you go away for? And if you want to get into the situation of how that developed or how you got there, go ahead and have at it.
All right. Basically, I had like a cannabis LSD conspiracy. I caught my case in 1991 when I was like 20 years old, and I was supplying like 15 colleges in 5 states with LSD and marijuana, and I kind of got into that. You know, I got into drugs, you know, cannabis like when I was 13 in California. You know, I started, you know, smoking and just, you know, kind of like a lot of us, you know, just kind of selling to support my own habit.
Right.
You know, and then,
That's
yeah, and
always,
then, you
almost
know,
always how it starts. Yeah.
yeah, once I figured out, you know, that I can make money, you know, and then, you know, it's also the thing, like, I don't know, whatever it is about me, like the people that have the drugs, like they didn't mind selling to me, you know, and they would like, you know, front me stuff, or they trusted me. I inspired trust in people. So I think that was a big part of it too. But it's just something, it grew from something, you know, like real small to you know, and I moved around too because my dad was in the military. So we were in California, then we were in England for 3 years. And you know, like ninth and 10th, eighth, ninth, and 10th grade. And over there, I was like the kid. It was all military kids on like a they call them DOD school, you know, like a Department of Defense school, and it was on like a High Wycombe Air Force base, and we had a high school, you know, junior high, and I was like the kid, like everybody would give the money, and I would go down to like the Jamaican bar and I would score the hash, you know. So then I moved back to Virginia in '87. My dad retired from the military, got a job at defense contractors, and we moved to this really like a upper middle class, like lily white area in Northern Virginia called Fairfax, in Fairfax County. And yeah, because when my dad retired from the military, he basically like doubled his salary. You know, when he retired from the military and started working for this defense contractor. So it was just like all, you know, rich kids. And you know, I grew up in California, so I had a lot of connections in California. And when I got there, it just seems like we're driving around, you know, trying to score, you know, like weed and psychedelics, and we can barely find them. And if we do find them, it's expensive, or like the weed is garbage. And so I started reaching out, you know, to family and friends in California and be like, man, send me like some Humboldt County bud, man. You know, give me some sheets of acid. And they would ship that stuff in the mail. And that's kind of how that's how kind of it started in my high school. But my high school was big. I went to Robinson High School in Fairfax. It was like 4,000 kids. And then we had a sister high school called Lake Braddock with another 4,000 kids. So in those two high schools, you know, when I was like 16, 17, 18, I kind of became like the guy, you know, because I always had the good bud, and I would have like the trips from Cali. So then when everybody went to college, you know, it just kind of exploded because, you know, they went to college and they got their frats or all their friends, and they'd be like, hey, man, you know, they call me up. They'd be like, hey, man, it's dry. There ain't nothing up here, man. Can you bring something up? So I just started bringing stuff up, and then it just like, you know, turned into this big
you know, a
thing.
lot of the audience doesn't understand fully just how easy and how plentiful things were in the 90s in California. And, you know, our region where we grew up, you know, Seth is from the Central Valley, and I take it you're referring to your dad probably worked at Lemoore Naval Air Station, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So he's from a city that's a farm town, military town that's 30 miles from where Mkali and I grew up. So there was enough inner city guys here, enough wealthier kids. It was a mix of lots of things. Immigrants from Mexico who had contacts. And with our region of the state, you either have to go down I-5 or Highway 99 to get from north to south. And so Mountain View, California, all San Francisco, the whole area was a hot spot for LSD and mushrooms and other stuff coming down to our area. And I got involved with it too. I was scoring sheets of acid for like 100 a piece and selling hits for $5 and going from there. You know, had a few times with monkey barrels and crazy carrots that I sort of remember. You know, when I started meeting guys from Michigan and I saw the quality of the weed they had, it was like, my goodness, you guys you're missing out. And I mean, even our Mexican weed, our cess bud was usually better, you know, but you know, it ballooned, and the prices also were so much higher that even if it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else. We don't think about these 20-year sentences when we're having all this fun, do we?
No, man. I was basically getting like 10,000 hits at a time for like $2,500. So, and I was getting like you know, I was paying like 25 cents a hit. You know, I was a wholesaler, so I was basically like the dude who was selling U sheets. You know, I would sell like 10 packs for like 800-900. You know,
yeah, I was worried about getting too far up the food chain with acid because I was being told that in California they can charge you with attempted manslaughter for handing them out. I don't know if that's true or not, but I remember being told that, and I was worried that what if I screw up, and you know, so I stuck with the weed stuff, and that ballooned from there. And obviously Mkali had his weed stuff as well. Is that true, you guys? You guys probably know a little bit more than I do.
As far as the laws were with the LSD, I heard the same thing in California. Seth, so your first offense with no weapons, drug distributing, fugitive, faking your suicide, and identity theft.
Yeah.
Was those that obviously raised your numbers on your jacket to put you in the medium?
And add in 5 years for having an Italian last name.
Yeah.